Hi, and welcome to another tenor banjo lesson. In this one, we're going to look at developing those ideas about seventh chords that we had in the previous lessons. We're going to use them to play a chord pattern that's full of seventh chords, and that's the chord pattern to 5'2" Eyes of Blue, which is exactly the same as the chord pattern for Please Don't Talk About Me When I'm Gone, and bits of it are used throughout jazz. The bridge of both of those songs is the same as the bridge to I Got Rhythm, and the chords to I Got Rhythm have been reused and recycled throughout jazz. Particularly in early jazz, which is where we tend to see the tenor banjo more than anything, this chord pattern is all over the place. We're going to look at it in the key of F, which sits quite nicely on the banjo, but we'll also look at some different ways of playing these chords in different positions. First of all, I'm just going to play through the song to give you an idea of the sound of it. Don't worry about the chords, we'll go through them step by step and put diagrams on the screen in a moment. 5'2", eyes of blue, oh what those 5 feet can do. Has anybody seen my girl? Turned up nose, turned down hose, flapper, yes, so one of those. Has anybody seen my girl? Well, if you run into a 5'2", covered in fur, diamond rings, all those things, bet your life it isn't her. Well, could she love? Could she woo? Could she coo? Has anybody seen my girl? And that's how it goes. So let's break down those chords. I'll play the inversions I just played there, and then we'll look at some other options for those chords. Now, this is often called a circle of fifths song. Don't worry if you're not au fait with the circle of fifths, but I'll pop one on the screen now just so you can see that we start on an F chord and then we take a wild leap around the circle to get to an A chord, and we play that as an A7. And then whenever we play a seventh chord, we get this feeling that we want to take a step anti-clockwise on the circle. So we have an A7 like this, and it feels like it wants to go to D. But when it gets to the D, that D is a D7, and that has this tension that makes us feel like we want to move to G. And when we get to G, it's not a G, it's a G7, and G7 feels like it wants to move to C. But when we get to C, it's not a C, it's a C7, which is that extra tension note in it, and that wants to move back to right where we started, an F chord. So it's this kind of domino effect. But don't worry too much about that. But this kind of moving around the circle anti-clockwise pattern happens throughout a lot of the material you find yourself playing as a tenor banjo player. So we have our F chord, and to begin with, we're just going to play our straightforward simple F chord down here. I'm going to play it open, 2, 3, 3. Although if you remember, that 3 on the first string is optional. So it's up to you which one you play, but I'm going to play the one with 3 fingers down. Now, we're going to go to an A7 now. I will show you another A7 in a moment. This one is a shape we haven't had before, and it's a bit of a stretch. It looks like this. I've got this one at the 4th, this one at the 2nd, this one at the 4th, but this one here on the 2nd string is at the 5th. So we have 4, 2, 5, 4, which is a bit of a stretch. But if you remember, we've played a G7, and we're going to play a G7 in a moment, down here as 2, open, 3, 2. And all this A7 is that moved up 2 frets. But we have to refinger it because we have to move that open string up 2 frets as well. We can't just slide it up. There's an open string in there, and that's where we end up with that big stretch. That one is going to take a bit of time to get into your muscle memory. Don't hurt yourself. Build up to these stretches gradually. And we'll show you another A7 or two in a moment. But there's our A7. Then we have a D7, which is here. We're going to have our first finger laying across the second fret. Although really it only has to play the lower two strings, so don't worry about holding all of the strings down. Try and focus the pressure onto the tip of your finger to hold down the lowest two strings. Then we have our third fret of our first string with our second finger, and then our third finger comes down on the fourth fret of the second string, like that. That's our D7. Our G7 is the same as that A7 shape, but slid down. Index finger falls off the end. We don't have to finger it like that. We can just play 2, open, 3, 2. And C7 looks like this. Open, 3, 2, 3. And that takes us back nicely just by flipping our first two fingers round to F. That C7 to F is a lovely movement. So let's just try and go through those. We have a bar of every chord except for the D7 that lasts for 2 bars. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. That's the stretchy A7. Here's 2 bars of D7. Now G7, C7, and F. Now that's the first part of the tune. That's what we call the A section. And this song, like lots of jazz songs, goes A section again, B section or bridge, just a different section to break it up a bit, and then back to the A again. A, B, A. So what we do at the end of the first A section is go back and do another C7 because that sets us up to do it again. F, A7, D7, twice as long, then G7, C7 and F. We're going to stay on the F this time because we're not going back to do another A section, we're going into the bridge. The beauty of this song is the bridge is a bunch of those chords in the same order. We just start in a different place and they have different timing. So we go to the A7 for 2 bars. The A7 likes to go to the D7 for 2 bars. The D7 likes to go to the G7 for 2 bars. And the G7 likes to go to the C7 for 2 bars. And that leaves us hanging. Where do we want to go? F, which is where the A section starts. And we do the whole of the A section again. F to A7 to D7. The D7's twice as long. To G7 to C7 and back to F. And if we wanted to do the whole song again, we put a C7 on the end and do the whole thing A, B, A all over again. Now there's a video of me playing Please Don't Talk About Me When I'm Gone, which is identical to this as far as the chord pattern goes. Please don't talk about me when I'm gone. Well honey, though our friendship ceases from now on. The whole song is exactly the same. I'm playing different chord inversions, but we'll look at some of those in a second. But the inversions don't matter. The chord names are the same. So if you want to have a go at playing along with me doing that, you can. But let's have a look at some alternative ways of playing some of those chords, just to open up the fingerboard a little bit more for you. So instead of going from an F there to this nasty one, you'll be relieved to know that instead of that horrible stretchy A7, we could instead play this horrible stretchy A7. I don't think this one's quite as horrible. This one, we have this sort of zigzaggy shape. I'm going 4th, 6th, 5th, 7th in order. 4, 6, 5, 7. And I don't think that one's quite as bad because at least all of your fingers are in adjacent frets, whereas with that one you've got a 2 fret stretch between your first and second fingers, which isn't so nice. 4, 6, 5, 7. We could also play the G7 that we had down here using the same shape, because if you remember our initial A7, we lowered it 2 frets to get G7. Well, we can lower this A7 2 frets to get 2, 4, 3, 5, which is now the same shape but G7. And the more you move around the neck, the more you'll start to see that we just use the same shapes over and over again in different places. So we could go F down there, A7 up here, D7 that we had before, and then the same as that new A7 here. And then the same C7 we had before, and F. So that's another way that you could do it. That one was jumping around a little bit though, so I wonder if there's another way that we could do it. Okay, we do an F there. Now, see, that's a bit of a jump, isn't it? What if we had an F somewhere around here? Well, what if we barred across the 5th fret and then used our ring finger on the 2nd string to play the 7th fret and our little finger to play the 8th fret of the 1st string? 5, 5, 7, 8. That's actually just the same as the open C chord down here, but we've just moved everything up to the 5th fret like that. So now we've got an F up here and an A7 up here, that new one. We could really do with a D7 that doesn't involve us jumping right down there. Something a bit smoother to lead us down there to that G7. Well, there's one we could play here at the 5th fret. We bar the 5th fret, and then I'm going to put my 2nd finger on the 6th fret of the C string and my 3rd finger on the 7th fret of the 2nd string. Like this. And that is a D7. So now I can go F, A7 at the 4th fret, and then D7 here. And go back to that A7 shape but slide it down 2 frets for our G7. If I wanted to, instead of going to that C7, I could actually do the D7 shape 2 frets lower. So I'd bar at the 3rd, my 2nd finger on the 4th of the lowest string, my ring finger on the 5th of the 2nd string. And then if I wanted to, I could come back up to my original F. And lo and behold, we've moved from here, our original pattern, up to here. Two completely different ways of playing the same chords. And in the bridge of the tune, don't forget, you're using the same bunch of chords, the same palette of chords. So you can play the bridge in a different key as well. Don't overdo it with those big stretches. Try getting into those shapes gradually. Don't hurt yourself. I hope you've enjoyed this one, and I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.